Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it comes from a translation of a message that was received by one of our admins, and it was then forwarded to me. The translation reads like this: Hello brother Nanshi, how are you? Can you please post my story as anonymous? I am a young woman who is aged 28 years old. I am currently staying here in South Africa. I am single. I want to tell you my own story, what happened for me to become single. So when I came here to South Africa, I came here with my husband. Let me say that my husband was the one who came to South Africa first, and he left me back home. Then after he had secured a job, then his boss told him that he was looking for a maid. So my husband then spoke with his boss, and he told him that it was far much better for him to wait for me until I had arrived in South Africa, since we had already planned that I should rejoin him in South Africa. And he said that if my wife come here to South Africa, she will then work for you. So the boss waited for me. Then my husband came back home, and when he came to South Africa, he took me to South Africa. That was how I found myself in South Africa. But me being here in South Africa, it came with a lot of challenges, because my husband, he was someone who was a heavy drinker. He is an alcoholic. Brother Nashi, the situation that I found when we had arrived at the place where my husband and I were now staying, I immediately knew that this meant that my marriage was in trouble. My husband had become such a heavy drinker. He was drinking a lot of alcohol, and he didn't care about anything. All that he wanted was to drink alcohol, and I was really afraid that he was going to become an alcoholic, because each and every time in the fridge, even if there was no food, but he will make it possible for there to be alcohol at all the times in the fridge. When we would go to work, first thing that he would do when he would wake up early in the morning, he would open up a bottle of beer, then he would drink it up, and by the time that we would have returned back from work, that was the first thing that he will do. Before bathing, he will sit down and he will drink his alcohol. This was really troublesome for me, because I'm just a quiet woman, and this ex-husband of mine, each and every time, he was always drinking alcohol. He was never sober, and he would get so violent with me, even though he never attempted to beat me up, but he would just insult me. So I told my parents that this was the situation that I was now facing here in South Africa. My sister and my mother, they both encouraged me to do my own stuff. The only problem was that I was working for my ex-husband's boss, so it was quite challenging. But one thing about working for white people is that they really don't care about your affairs or your personal life, because after they had found out that we were having a lot of problems in our marriage, they said that there was no need for me to stop working, because one day I had spoken with my boss and I had told him that I could not continue working anymore because I wanted to break up with my husband, since he was now an alcoholic. Then my boss said that no, I can continue working. Me and my husband, when we broke up, I then started staying in another location, and he was staying in another location. But as a man and a woman who had children together, we would regularly meet, and each and every time that we would meet, he would want to have intercourse with me. But I denied him. I kept on telling him that he had to change his ways first before we can get back together again. Like this man, Brother Nashi, when he is drunk, he shows everyone that he is drunk. He removes his shirt, he removes the trousers. He wants to show the whole world that he has money and he is drinking alcohol. So that was the kind of setup that was there between me and my ex-husband. What I used to do then is that after me and my husband had broken up with each other, I then sent my sister to go and collect my kids, because they were staying in my husband's village. Then my sister went there and took my kids. Now my kids are staying with my mom in the village where I come from. So what I will do is that I would put some groceries on the truck, those trucks that go to Zim. But I found out that this was like expensive for me, but I only found out that it was a little bit expensive for me after I had started dating this other guy. He is a truck driver. He was a cross-border truck driver. So each and every time when he would be traveling back to Zim, he would fetch me with his truck in the province where I am staying. Then he would drive with me to Musina, and that was where he would drop me off. Then there in Musina, already my mom or my sister would have traveled from our village. Then they would come and cross over into South Africa, and they will be waiting for me in Musina. We will buy the groceries together, the kids' clothes and stuff like that, because there in Musina things are really cheap, like cheap at those Chinese shops. So after I had broken up with that truck driver guy that I was dating, who always made it possible for me to go to Musina for free, and he would carry those groceries for free. Sometimes he would even travel with my sister or my mom, all for free. After we had broken up due to some reasons of him cheating on me, I then decided to stay single for a little while. But when I was single, like as a woman who was used to me getting free transport, like coming from the province where I am coming from to Messina, knowing that it was going to be free transport, it was now giving me a lot of stress since I was not earning a lot. I then decided to look for another guy who was going to fill up the space that had been left behind by that other cheating truck driver that I was dating. Each and every time that I would date this guy, there was always something up until I met this other man. So this is the way that we met. The guy that I met, we were in Musina. What I will do is that whenever I will be in Musina, I would sleep at a certain guest house. Then the next morning, I would go and I would catch a taxi and I would return back home. Like if I would arrive in Musina late at night, then I would just go and book myself in a guest house. Then there was one day when I had arrived in Musina, it was late at night, and I went and I booked myself at that guest house that I used to sleep at. So it was dinner time, and on that night you had to go and dish up for yourself. So when I went there, then when I was dishing myself up, I just said, instead of me taking this food back to my room, let me just eat in the dining area. So whilst I was eating in the dining area, then there were two guys who were also booked at the same guest house, and one of them was a South African, then the other, he was a guy from Zim. They were both engineers. Then we started talking whilst we were eating. We talked until that guy from Zim asked for my phone numbers. It was like they were competing against each other. Then I selected the guy who was from Zim. He was the one that I ended up talking with. We spoke, Brother Nash, until it was somewhere around 11 p.m. and he said, can I come to your room? When he said, can I come to your room, it was like I had spent such a long time without me being with a man. So I said, fine, you can come. When he came, we kept on talking until I invited him to get in bed with me, because Brother Nashi, I was already into him. He had sent me his pictures, and when I looked at the pictures, I saw that, yeah, this guy, he had made it here in South Africa. I invited him into bed, then we slept together. So from that day, we were dating each other. I then noticed that this guy, there was something that was wrong with him, because on that night when we were in my room in that guest house in Messina, I saw that this guy, he didn't want me to switch on the light, because when he came into bed, he then started complaining and he was saying that it is hot and he's struggling to sleep. This was before we could make love, and he said that the light was making him to feel dizzy. And at his place, he said that he had those type of bedroom lights whereby they will be like dim. So in that guest house, the lights, they were really bright. I have to admit that they were really bright. So I gave in. He rose out of bed. All along, he made sure that when we were romancing each other, he didn't remove his clothes. He only removed the night dress that I was wearing, but he was still wearing his shirt and the jean and the socks. Only after he had switched off the light, that was when he removed the jean, the shirt and everything that he had on. Then we started making love. Like, he switched off the TV, the phones. It was total darkness when we were making love. I never expected that there was something like wrong with this guy or anything. We made love through the night and we didn't use any protection at all. Then Brother Nashi, from there on, he then took me back to the province where I was staying. We used that guy's car. It was me, him, and his colleague. Then he dropped me off in the province where I am staying. But this guy, he always moves around South Africa because that is the nature of his job that he does as an engineer. He goes around South Africa all the times. So whenever I'll be in Musina, it's either he would come and pick me up, or on the day when I would want to go to Musina, he would come and pick me up so that we can go shopping together. But each and every time, Brother Nashi, whenever I was with this guy, it is really a funny thing about this guy. I never made love to him during daytime. It was always one and the same thing. When I was with him, he would make sure that during the day he would avoid me. Like, he would say that he would be busy on his laptop finishing up his work and stuff like that. But when it was evening, that was when he will start touching you, and after touching you, that was when he will say, let us switch off the lights because they are making me feel so dizzy. So we always made love in the dark until finally we had broken up. Then Brother Nashi, I don't know, maybe I just became so suspicious of this guy because I kept on asking myself as to why this guy made it sure that we would always make love in the dark. He always had one funny reason, like, I have a headache, let us switch off the light, this and that, the light is making me to feel so dizzy. Then there was one evening, this guy, he had already taught me how to drink alcohol. On that night when we were sleeping, I thought that maybe I was drunk, but all along I was just pretending as if I was also drinking, and he thought that maybe I was intoxicated, but I was not. He then said, let us go to sleep. So we slept, Brother Nashi. When I noticed that he had fallen asleep, I then got out of the bed and I switched on the lights. I then removed the blankets. I slowly removed the blankets and I started looking at his manhood. Oh my God, what? You know what I saw, Brother Nashi, on his manhood? I don't know what this guy was planning to do with my life. In Zim, this thing, we call it chuma. It is like a chain that is made out of beads, you know, those traditional beads. That is what I saw on his manhood. At the base of his manhood, he had this thing that looked like a ring that had these beads that I saw, they were red in color. After that, Brother Nashi, when I looked at his manhood, I saw that all over his manhood, it was covered with sort of like pimples, and those pimples, Brother Nashi, they were like blackheads and they were ready to be popped. Some of these pimples, it was like they had some fluids that were inside, even up until his testicles. When I was looking at him, there were just those pimples. There were pimples everywhere, Brother Nashi. I was really shocked of all the things that I had seen. I just took my clothes and I wore my clothes. I could not even bath myself. After I had taken my clothes and my handbag, I left that guy and I just returned back home. When I returned back home, Brother Nashi, I cried because of all the things that I had seen on that man's manhood. I didn't even know what he wanted to do with me, especially the things that I had seen on his testicles. They were full of pimples and they were ready to be popped. Like inside those pimples, there were so much fluid. I cried for so many days and I didn't want to date this man anymore. And the bad part about it is that when I was dating this guy, I had said, finally, God has given me someone. And I had started ignoring my ex-husband because he kept on asking me, you'll be sending his sisters so that they can speak with me. but I had said it is time for me to move on. I do not want to be with my husband anymore. Right now, Brother Nashi, I feel like I need to return back to my husband, but I am afraid that if I return back to my husband, maybe that man that I was dating has already given me a disease. What will happen if I give or if I pass on this disease to my husband? So I am really confused. Maybe that guy was just a ritualist. If I go back to my ex-husband, do I tell him or do I just keep it as a secret? What if you get sick or something? Because on his side, my ex-husband, he has been honest enough with me. He have told me all of the women that he has dated after we had been separated from each other. Now that he wants to be back in my life, he said, let us do it for the sake of the kids. But I have lied to him. I told him that for all of these years that we have been separated from each other, I have never slept with any man because I didn't want to get in a relationship again after I had broken up with you. But it is a lie, Brother Nashi. I have dated several men and I do not know, should I just continue playing innocent with him and not reveal the secret to him? Because that is what I told his sisters. I told them that I have never been in a relationship with any other man, and they seem to be, and it's like they believe all of the things that I tell them. Yo, dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our admins. It's a translation of a message that we received.